I just learned an awful lot in those 20 minutes. So the rest of the session that we have planned for this evening, and then certainly for tomorrow, how we've designed it is that we've designed it to be really jam-packed. And I apologize last year when we did this, is that we are going to make you hustle for the duration of today and then for all day tomorrow. And we've tried to keep everything kind of like TED Talk style. So we've got an amazing group of speakers, and we've asked everybody to maybe spend 20 minutes on their presentation. So we're going to get through a lot of material. So how many of you here, I'm guessing that everybody here has heard of edX, I'm guessing. So edX, for those of you who haven't, was founded in 2012, and it's founded at Harvard and MIT jointly. And the mission was a simple one. The mission was, how do we take our learning that we have, this amazing content, and our amazing professors, and how do we make that available, and how do we make that available globally? So in effect, they created an open library of content, a MOOC, as we would better know it. Since its inception, they've added on now many, many more of the world's most highest regarded learning institutions. And Lee will come and tell us more about that. They're unique in two ways, is that everything that they do is non-for-profit, and everything that they do is open sourced. So that's it's a very compelling mandate that they have. So Lee is on the leadership team at edX, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Lee for many years. We actually worked together building those learning management systems that learners hated a long time ago. So Lee's going to come and talk to us. So they have revolutionized the way that individuals learn. You can get a master's level education from MIT, from Harvard, at no cost. So you see how that's revolutionized learning for the individual. Lee's going to come and talk to us about how they are now reimagining learning in the workplace. And how can they take some of those same things and bring them to the workplace? How do they reduce the distance between academia and the workplace? So Lee, please come and join us and tell us how you're planning on doing that.
Thank you, Amar. Appreciate it. Just make sure I get my changer here. I'm very pleased to have been invited to speak to such an esteemed crowd by my friend Carl and the folks at EdCast's. And when they said, listen, we have the perfect place for you, 2 world-famous Stanford professors, and then you, and then drinks. So the only thing that stands between drinks is you. And last year, since they had me do this during drinks, when they said, just keep talking, they're listening, that was great too. And I'm really excited to have an opportunity to do this. In fact, I'm not sure how this will go. I've been doing transcendental meditation for 45 years, and thank you for showing me I was doing it all wrong until just now. And usually this is just a bunch of non sequiturs, and eventually it comes together and makes some sense. I'm going to make sure I get the clicker thing working the right way. What do I got to point this at? Anything particular? Whoever's in charge? Okay. One of the, I'll let them do that. We have to do no slides. It'll all be jokes. How many people here do not know anything about edX? Which one do I push? That one? Okay. So good. Everybody says they do. Has anybody taken a MOOC before in this room? Okay, and complete. How many people here are CLO and learning officer level types in this audience? Okay. My daughter, I have 3 kids. Have you guys heard me speak before? Has anybody heard me do this before? I'll change the jokes. I already got to drop all the neuroscience stuff because of who's here. I have 3 kids that I put through college for cash. I'll be paying back the rest of my life. And I like to say that 2 of them have a lot of untapped potential, and 1 has nice hair. And I have a And so I'm learning a lot about millennials because they're all in their 20s, and fortunately for me, they're all working. I would have believed that I knew a lot more about this audience than I actually do until I actually had them. And I came home the other day, and I had a very grumpy daughter. I said, "What's the matter?" She's really kind of half year into her first job. She goes, "Dad," she goes, "work sucks." I go, "What do you mean work sucks?" I mean, I've been a good role model for them. That was her mother. She goes, "You have to go and take junk from people every day, and they call you with problems, and it's nonstop, and then they pressure you to get things done. Is that it?" I was like, "Only for the next 40 years. I said, what's your plan?" And she goes, "I could run this whole thing today. There's nothing about this business I don't know. The two people in their 70s that have been doing it for another 30 years, they're terrible at this. You know, if they would just go away and let me do what I want and stop adding things on that they think I should be doing, this would be a perfect job." I said, "All right, I'm really starting to get why I wasted a lot of money sending you to a private university." And so it ties into some of the things that we're thinking about and looking at as it relates to edX, how learners learn. And I really want to use this opportunity today to give you an update on what we've been doing in the past year, because it keeps evolving very fast. And I think for a lot of you that are searching for solutions, you ought to think about some of the things that we have today that people have already invested hundreds of millions of dollars in that potentially solve some of the problems as we search forward into the future together. So 2030, a lot of people here are probably familiar with that as a bellwether date. Do you want to talk about what you believe 2030 means in terms of your business right now? Anybody? I'll give you a clue. That's the date that the statisticians say 50% of all jobs that exist today will be gone and replaced because of AI and technology improvements. And I think that that should be a really, really frightening thought for everybody, because yes, technology is going to change things, but it also opens up new opportunities and new jobs. And when I talk to CLOs, click, am I pushing the right thing? I can signal you from the back to go do it. But when so if you want to just stand there and just do that over and over. Okay. When I talk to CLOs, we very rarely have the conversation about, are we really going to let 50% of the legacy knowledge of our business walk out the door because they're not equipped for the jobs that we've got? And by the way, this is a roller coaster that starts big time around 2020, so we're already beginning to see the beginning of it. I know companies that are in this room today, because many of them are either edX users or advisors or something else, that looking for 20,000, 40,000 people that they will need to hire over the next couple of years that are data scientists. Or they're going to need people that are blockchain specialists. Or they need people that are specialized in Internet of Things. And so we should be thinking about, how do I take the workforce I have that has this legacy knowledge and infuse them with the following idea. Half of the jobs are going away. You may be on that path. Here are the places that we're going to have openings. And if you will work on reskilling, we can point you at some of the courses that you could take to close this global job skills gap. You're not going to be able to hire enough people that have those skills if you were to be able to hire every college graduate from every class. They just don't exist. There won't be enough of them. So we really need to take advantage of the fact that technology is also going to empower us to help people learn and train. So through the edX platform, one of the things that we've learned by looking at other platforms is that when we unbundle the idea of education, in this case, platforms enable new models. Hey, and so there's lots of examples of this where the platform enables the new model, and the new model is going to be called by, I think, a new name that we'll talk about in a second. But taxis, right? Now, on call, if you need transportation somewhere, it shows up where you are. Instead of a couple of movie choices, thousands of media streams that can come your way on the platform. And every place can become a hotel. You can become a hotelier yourself. All because the platform allows you to use technology, but also deliver an experience. There you go. And so the question is, are we really talking about Omni-Channel? And that's a new phrase that potentially some of you have heard and some of you have not, but you want to be able to take that away with you when you go. So Omni-Channel, I think, is an interesting concept. And Amazon has said the future is Omni-Channel right now. So for those of you that haven't heard that, it's not everything online. It's everything online combined with experiences that we would have considered classical before, but they need to feed each other because you're going to disassemble the platform in order to make it work. So in order for us to understand where education is going, I want you to think about what we're doing in terms of that as well. For those of you that don't know, edX is a nonprofit. It was started by Harvard and MIT. It has three purposes. One is access to the world's top courses from the world's best universities for free to anyone, anywhere that wants them, or for a verified certificate that can become a currency between learners and potentially employers and recruiters. The second one was how to use technology to improve learner outcomes. Many of you are familiar with some of the different institutions associated with MIT. The McGovern Brain Research Institute is one of them. So a lot of neuroscience folks have studied the billions of pieces of data that we collect at MIT to understand what is the best way to assemble learning pathways for learners in interleaf learning sequences. And then the third one was a longitudinal big data study on how do online learners learn. So these are our purposes. But in order for us to be sustaining, one of the things that we have to do is understand where there is an opportunity in the workplace to combine universities and corporations in a brand new way so that learners can be job ready when they get out of school. And what we had originally was a tsunami of events that created this opportunity for us to kind of involve and look at this. The first one was the amount of money that students paid in order to get an education, the amount of debt that they took on in order to go do that, and the job readiness they had that led employers to say, that person is not worth the amount of money I need to give them in order for them to satisfy their debt. So you end up with $1 trillion of debt, and that's a very upside down situation. So let's talk about a porous university experience or a different experience. These are your learners. Now, these are your workers. If it's a kid, then they're learning at home at the time and place that they want on their laptop, 3 screens at a time. They're learning when they're mobile. They learn when they're on their days off. They learn when they're in transit. But there is no place, and there's no reason for us to subject them to the idea of 8 a.m., come to class, hear a boring lecture, come sit in the conference room while we yak at you. And I think that stuff is unbelievable. In fact, I was on the plane flying out here. Who was it? The woman who was talking about the 8-hour course she took on her flight. There you go. So I was watching a similar one from Linda, and it was on gender bias. It was literally one long 45-minute video of a woman standing there like this, because this is a power pose, you know. It's not if you go there, you got to put your hands like this. And she just talked. There's no active learning going on. We know from the neuroscience of learning that every 5 or 6 minutes, we're going to get mind wandering unless you're engaged in activity. And so we've explicitly set the platform up to be able to go do that. Right now, currently, this year, if you were here last year, you know these are bigger numbers. We've got 13 million learners taking 1,500 courses. And there's 45 million course instances now completed on edX where we have the data of every keystroke of every learner. And we feed that back to the partners, of which there are about 130. Most of them, the world's top 200 universities, a smattering of others like Microsoft and World Bank and MongoDB, and others. And so we want to talk about who the learners are and what they do with the courses. 43% of them are taking the courses for career advancement purposes, and it's working. And so this is very different. If you could do the next one, please, and the next one. This is very different in one way to the concept of micro-learning that people have talked about. Micro-learning, they said, well, here's what our learners want. They want to be able to 5 seconds, understand blockchain, get in the room, go ahead and do that. They want to be able to fly an airplane and do brain surgery, and let's make it short, 30 seconds, that's all you need to know. Not my doctor. And there is a reason that you want to have access to information that way. But that's frankly not new. For me, that's called just-in-time learning. Back when Amar and I were murdering people's ambition with learning management systems, just-in-time training was like the thing. So now, one of the things that we know is that there is a segment of your population that needs to get a deeper experience with courseware in order to develop a job or skills competency, and they're going to use that to promote themselves throughout the organization. And you, as learning professionals, would like to be able to identify who has that kind of go-get-'em ability and attitude. Who are those people? Because those are, frankly, probably the ones that we ought to think about as our future leaders within our company today. So 47% of them post on LinkedIn, and 45% of them are including their credentials for a course on their resumes. And in addition to that, we make this available as open source. So right now, that we can track 800 open edX sites, everything that we have, but you can have it and take it. Whole countries are doing it, institutions are doing it, companies are doing it. They can have the platform that we have. You can have the same pedagogy, same tools. It's free. Take it. That's MIT and Harvard's gift to the world. And we hope to reach 1 billion people ultimately. So it's important that everybody understands that we're talking about an open system that anybody can have. Okay, so is the future of education omni-channel? I think that may potentially be. And it's a really good concept for us. When I go like this, that means change. Okay. Okay. Unbundling is core to the platform process. So what we're doing now is we're bringing a lot of students to institutions. Now, these students are all your corporate learners. If I was to take, how many people here in a Fortune 500 company? Okay. I don't have a single Fortune 500 company where I have less than 1,000 of your learners that have used their corporate email address to take courses. And anybody that's interested can contact me. I will tell you exactly what they're taking and what quantity. I won't tell you their names because of the data privacy rights, but I can give you a roadmap to what they're taking on their own. They've discovered this and they're using it. So the schools say, hey, this is fantastic. We've got a new way to get to a large audience of learners. And the learners are saying, I want to have a relationship with that school that may transcend doing this one course. So when we talk about lifetime learning, which was one of the really cool parts of Professor Shank's conversation today, we're looking for the opportunity to do that because the learners want to go do that. And the schools now, for the first time, want to work with corporations in order to identify what skills do you need, because that's what we'll build. And so we have a whole team at edX that goes to see you to have that conversation. And in some cases, corporations are putting up funds to go do that. Microsoft, who's here, they've done that. Boeing does that with MIT on a fairly regular basis. And in some cases, they go, if you will build it, I will give you 5,000 learners to take that course for a certificate, which can be a good enough incentive for schools. But we're trying to enable those conversations. And so there's a place where you can actually do that. There's not a fee for any of this, right? This is just, let's see if we can move the needle together with something that we've already invested in. One of those steps that we're looking at then is something that we didn't expect to happen as quickly as it did, but that was where schools started to give credit to people for taking MicroMasters. Because A, it's a signaling device to you that the courses are rigorous, but there's a reward in it for the learner as well. The learners want something for investing. I heard people talking about it. So how do we get people to go do this? One of the things you have to understand is that people will do what you pay them to do. And if you're not going to pay them to do it, then you need to allow them to have some other kind of credential that they would find valuable because they can post that to their profile. It will be a great part of the rest of their career, which hopefully they will have with you. However, because they're millennials inside your workforce, and by 2030, that number that I put up before, 75% of your workforce will be millennials. Right now, I would bet you that there's less than 15% of your business that was alive and walking the earth the same time as Elvis. I'm in the last quartile. It's true. He died in '79. So one of the things we're looking at is what will happen with these degrees. Georgia Tech is now offering a full online master's on edX. We would have never thought that this was going to happen or happen that fast. You could take a MicroMasters, and you could take 4 courses and be done with it. You can go apply to Georgia Tech and take the 4-course MicroMaster, and they will give you 25% off the price and the time it takes to a master's on their university. Or you can transfer and take the whole master's online through them. These are options the students didn't have before. That's Omni-Channel. The second one is credit exchange pathways. And again, I understand that this is not an audience that's necessarily interested in credit, but it's interesting for you to know what's happening because these are going to be important signals down the road. Down at UC San Diego, they have an unbelievably good data science micromasters on edX, and I'll talk about what micromasters are. But Curtin University and University of Queensland in Australia said, we think that stuff's so good. If you took it, we'll give you credit against our master's program there. That's really an interesting new development. And thanks to Arizona State University, you can now take your entire freshman year for free on edX. So remember what this is. This is take it for free, or you can take it for $50 a course. And then in this case, you have up to a year to pay $200 of credit for the course, which means you could take the whole freshman year for $5,000 from ASU. No application fee, no SATs. And this is the program that Arizona State University and Starbucks are doing together. This is amazingly hot with people that run QSRs and other businesses that employ tens or hundreds of thousands of workers that may not have had an opportunity to go university and college. But if you want to keep those employees long-term, and you can offer them something of value that starts them on a path to education, they will be grateful and continue in your employ longer than I think that they would do as planned. In fact, I heard this morning from somebody, there was a study that was just released about Google, Facebook, and Amazon, one other right here, where they identified what the average length of employment was for a millennial that joined and worked at those companies. And that came out today, I think, or yesterday. Did anybody see that? Want to take a guess? 1.85 years. That's it. Remember my daughter? I can run this. They're on to the next thing. If we don't give them ways to learn and a path to go forwards, then they're going to do what they have been brought up to do. They're multitasking, mobile-oriented, technology-savvy, can get this anywhere, don't need to be bored with you. I'll go to the next challenge, looking for equity. Out here, you guys got a big problem because everybody wants that. Boston, which just all dried up. There's none left to have. You've got to work for nonprofits. And the press on this has been really good. So even though I may want to be a little hyperbolic about it, these are the types of things that we're seeing from the trade press about it. One more. So what is the MicroMasters and why does it matter? One of the things that we did with MIT was say, if we could create a program that you would be able to take that gave you all the skills you needed in order to be a good professional, and a corporation evaluated the curriculum and they would put their name on it and say, if you take this, you'll have the skills you need in order to work here in this job. We said, who's going to be interested in doing that? MIT stepped up to the plate with supply chain. And they went to Walmart. How many people at Walmart do you think need to know supply chain in order to do their jobs? If you're thinking 100,000, you would be about right. And so you could take the MIT supply chain MicroMasters, and it would be worth, at MIT, 50% of a master's in time and cost. If you applied to MIT and were accepted, they would give you $30,000 off the cost of the master's and 6 months off the time for the 1 year. That's huge. It would only cost you about $1,200 to take the MicroMasters. There's 5 courses, each one's about $250 in the sequence. But that learner, where they decided to take the course for free or for a certificate, is going to get more input and knowledge about supply chain than if they went to any public or state college, probably in the United States. And you can bet the 100,000 people that are touching supply chain at Walmart have had very little exposure at all, college-wise. And so one of the things that's most important to us about this is that we have to understand that all of the skills that people are going to have and need because of technology are very different than the path that we took. We need a porous, open education concept here where I can continue to go back and get those skills. We're making them all available as fast as we can. We've got 1,200 courses, 1,400 courses active at a time, and encourage you to use them. So in this case, with MicroMasters, I think 130 learners also applied to finish their full degree at MIT, which is kind of amazing because we only take 40 people in that program at $60,000 each. And we could expand that by 3 times. But we had thousands of learners that took and completed the course. I want to keep on speed, I just want to show you, there are now, after the first one, which was so successful for MIT, which has generated millions of dollars for them, which all goes back into the program or whatever MIT does with the money. There are lots of MicroMasters and professional certificates. 40 different universities now are creating those on edX, and they're being accepted around the world. So lots of programs that you can make available to anybody. And they've been developed with employers in mind. So every single one has an endorsement from a corporation. In fact, you can change the slide. One of the things that I think should be interesting to everybody is that there are individual organizations being created by Microsoft and IBM. Microsoft is called IOLC. I think IBM's is called the DLC. But what they're all trying to do is create a body that will look at and evaluate courses but put a seal of approval on them. So that you as a corporation say, if this is what Microsoft says works for them for data analytics, that's good enough for me. If these 5 companies are using it and have endorsed it, that's the criteria I'm looking for. So without our help, that's springing up and has been happening on its own. We created a global corporate advisory board made out of a number of companies that were large employers. The ones that are on this screen are representative of the active members today, a year ago, so that they could help us figure out the best way to create a program that would serve corporations in a way that they had not been served before. And so that led to edX for Business. You can go online and do it. If you don't want to pay attention to me anymore, you can put your phone out and download the edX mobile app. It's a great way to get started from Google Play or the iStore. But this is an opportunity for all of us to figure out, can we use these courses? And so I think one more. They cover all the high demand areas that you would be thinking about. One more. Is to how do businesses do this? So what we created was 3 different ways. You could get, and I'm only telling you this so that you can enable your business and your learners. I know it's really not a sales pitch because we're a nonprofit and don't make much out of this anyways. One is you could get codes for courses you could pass out to your employees so that they could register for that and not pay. And then edX would bill you later based on redemption. You don't have to prepay for stuff and get into a model where, yes, here's a subscription and we make our money on the breakage because no one's going to take it and it's terrible, but last year you bought $3 million worth of stuff, so you're going to have to do it again. Otherwise your boss is going to know why you wasted $3 million last year. It becomes a vicious circle. The second is we have a catalog API. So anybody says, I want to curate my courses myself, create my own learning pathways, and then I know what the learners want here. We can do that. Have that tool, you can do that. And you get the data back on, hey, who took what? Did they start it? Did they finish it? When did they finish it? How long did it take? And then finally, because we're now integrated with success factors from SAP, and you can do it through that where it's all ready. We just have to turn on the catalog. Or if you have your own LMS, we have a single sign-on package. So any corporation that says, I would like to take advantage of what these schools offer, I want to be able to find it on our own site, I want single sign-on for my learners, I want the data. All of that stuff exists because that corporate advisory board has been able to put together some advice for us on how to do this so that it would be different than what else was in the market. Finally, I'll leave you guys with this. These are some things that McKinsey highlighted in their study from 2014 through 2015 of 1,200 large corporations. I encourage you to just have a look and see if any of that sounds like your organization and the things that you face. We all have real issues and real problems we try to deal with in helping learners. So I think if we can help you and have a discussion about that and listen to some of the other great speakers, there'll be lots of wonderful ideas. And thank you for letting me hold you back from gin and tonics for 20 minutes. Okay?